My name is Daniel, and my wife, Lauren, recently told her coworkers that her husband has no say in her career decisions. Those were her exact words, spoken with the confidence of someone who thought she was making a strong point about women's empowerment. What she did not realize was that she had just given me the blueprint for her own downfall. I found out about her little speech from one of my colleagues, Tom, who happens to work in the same office building as she does. After a client meeting, he pulled me aside and said he thought I should know what had been discussed at her department's team lunch. According to him, Lauren had gone on about how she makes all of her own choices regarding business trips and does not need anyone's permission for anything related to work. That evening, when I walked into the house, she was in the kitchen making dinner, humming to herself like everything in life was perfect. I leaned on the doorway for a moment, watching her, then finally spoke. "So, I heard you gave an inspiring speech about independence today," I said. She turned around, and I saw a faint red appear in her cheeks. She knew exactly what I meant, but she tried to act casual. "I was just explaining to my coworkers that I make my own career decisions," she said. "It is the year 2024, not 1954. I walked over to the refrigerator, opened it, and took out a bottle of water. "And apparently," I said, "my opinion on anything related to your job is completely irrelevant." "That is not what I said," she replied quickly. I twisted the cap off and took a slow sip, not breaking eye contact. "Actually, that is exactly what you said. Word for word. I have heard it from more than one person." She crossed her arms in front of her chest. "Look, they were asking about the conference in Las Vegas next month, and I told them I decide my own travel schedule. What is wrong with that?" "Conference in Las Vegas?" I raised an eyebrow. "This is the very first time I am hearing about a conference in Las Vegas." "Because it is my job, not yours," she said. "I do not need to check every single business decision with you." I almost smiled at how perfectly she was proving Tom right. "You are absolutely right," I agreed. "Your career, your choices. I am just the husband who apparently has no say in anything." She seemed to relax then, like she thought she had won. "Exactly. I am glad you understand." "Oh, I understand just fine." I took another drink. "When is this conference in Las Vegas?" "Next weekend. Friday through Sunday," she said. "It is a huge opportunity. Great speakers, great networking. Sounds like a perfect chance for you to show everyone just how independent you are," I said. She started talking excitedly about how the women at work supported her stance. They had spent their lunch discussing modern relationships and how important it is for women to keep their autonomy. She was proud of herself, like she had just changed the world. What she did not realize was that she had just handed me all the information I needed. 3 days in Las Vegas. A business conference. Publicly declared to her coworkers as proof of her independence. The pieces were already lining up in my mind. That night, while she called her sister Ashley to tell her all about the upcoming trip, I sat in my home office and started digging. The conference was real enough, but there were details she had conveniently skipped when she told me about it. I went to the conference website and pulled up the schedule. Workshops on professional development, networking events, and plenty of social activities in the evening. Las Vegas is not exactly known for its quiet, conservative atmosphere. I had a feeling this little trip would be very revealing. While she kept talking in the other room, I started making calls of my own. There were plans to set up, steps to put in place. If Lauren wanted to prove how independent she was, I was going to let her experience that independence fully. The next morning, she came downstairs practically glowing. She had already begun laying out outfits on the bed and talking about which sessions she wanted to attend. Her happiness would have been contagious in any other situation. "You know something?" I said over breakfast. "I think you are completely right about making your own decisions. I am actually proud of you for standing up for yourself." She looked at me, surprised but pleased. "Really?" "Absolutely," I said. "Independence is important in a marriage. Both people should be able to make their own choices without interference." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "I am so glad you feel that way. Some of the women at work said their husbands would never be this understanding." "Well, they obviously do not have husbands who truly respect their wives' autonomy," I replied with a smile. She heard support. What she did not hear was the shift. She had drawn the line herself, declaring that my input did not matter. Now she was about to find out what that looked like in real life. By Thursday evening, everything on my end was ready. Lauren was busy packing her suitcase, talking nonstop about the conference, the speakers, and the networking events. And I was quietly prepared for what came next. Lauren had booked her own flight, chosen her own hotel, and handled every detail of the trip without saying a word to me. Exactly the kind of independence she bragged about. By Friday morning, she was practically buzzing around the house, checking her luggage every few minutes and holding her printed boarding pass like a trophy. She wore a brand new dress I had never seen before, something far more suited for a night on the strip than a business seminar. "Do not wait up for me," she said, giving me a quick kiss on the cheek. "The opening reception goes late, and I want to make the most of my networking." "Of course," I replied. "Enjoy proving how independent you are." She paused at the front door, hand resting on the handle. "You are being incredibly supportive about this. Some couples would have a huge argument over a trip like this." "Well, some couples must not communicate as well as we do," I said. "Have a great time showing everyone how autonomous you are." The moment she left for the airport, I made my first move. I called the florist downtown and ordered an arrangement of white lilies and roses. The message on the card was simple but carried the right tone. "Congratulations on your independence. May you get everything you are asking for." I asked the florist to deliver it directly to her department, right where everyone would see it. Nothing says supportive husband quite like flowers celebrating the independence your wife publicly declares. Around noon, my phone rang. It was Lauren calling from the airport. "The flowers are gorgeous," she said, sounding thrilled. "Everyone at the office is talking about how lucky I am to have such an understanding husband. I just wanted to make sure your coworkers know how much I support every decision you make," I said. "The card really drives home your message." She laughed lightly. It was perfect. If only she knew how perfect it truly was. While she was flying to Las Vegas, I had appointments of my own. My first stop was my attorney's office. We had paperwork to review, documents about joint accounts, shared assets, and anything else that might require attention now that she had announced she makes major decisions without input from anyone else. My attorney raised an eyebrow when I explained everything. "She actually said this in front of her coworkers? More than one witness?" she asked. "That is what I have been told," I said. "And yes, she is in Las Vegas right now, celebrating her independence." We spent most of the afternoon updating the necessary documents. Independence works both ways, and I wanted the legal paperwork to reflect that fact. After leaving the attorney's office, I drove straight to the bank. It is remarkable how cooperative financial institutions become when you have proper documentation and legitimate concerns about account management. Joint accounts require 2 signatures. Individual accounts do not. The branch manager was polite and professional. "These changes will take effect immediately," she said. "All deposits and transfers will be redirected as requested." "Perfect," I said. "I want everything handled correctly." By Saturday morning, social media updates from Lauren's trip began flooding my phone. Pictures at the conference registration desk, photos with new networking contacts, and several shots from what looked like a very energetic hotel bar. The timestamps showed those bar photos were taken long after legitimate networking events would have ended. Her calls became less frequent as the weekend went on. And when she did call, her voice had that breathless tone people get when they are drinking more than they should and not getting enough sleep. "I am having an amazing time," she told me during our quick Sunday morning call, "learning so much about asserting myself professionally." "I am sure you are really embracing that independent spirit," I said. "The other attendees are so inspiring. Everyone here understands the importance of making your own choices without pressure." "Sounds like you found your group," I replied. What she did not know was that I had made a few calls of my own to her workplace, not to interfere with her job, but to update certain administrative details she had publicly insisted she alone should handle. Emergency contacts, insurance beneficiaries, other routine information, just keeping everything aligned with her declaration of independence. Her immediate supervisor was surprisingly understanding. "We appreciate you letting us know," he told me. "It is important that our records stay current, especially for someone who travels as often as she does." "Just making sure everything is accurate," I said. And I meant it. Lauren had been very clear about wanting to take care of everything herself. By Sunday evening, every piece of the puzzle was in place. She would be flying back Monday morning and stepping into a life where her declarations of independence had been taken at full value. Her coworkers cheered her empowerment. Her husband had applauded her autonomy. And now she would get to experience exactly what she had asked for. I spent Sunday night cleaning the house top to bottom. Not because I expected a heartwarming reunion, but because I wanted everything to look sharp and orderly when she walked in and discovered just how literally her independence had been applied. Her last social media update from Las Vegas was a group photo taken at the hotel bar well after midnight. She was surrounded by other attendees, all looking like they had celebrated their professional development far more enthusiastically than any conference handbook would recommend. Her caption said, "Last night in Vegas with my new support network. Ready to take on the world." Perfect. She was about to get that chance. Monday morning came with an interesting twist. She texted me at 6 o'clock saying her flight was delayed and she would not be home until late afternoon. The funny thing was, I had already checked the airline website. Not a single delay listed for any flight leaving Las Vegas for our city that morning. While she was allegedly dealing with travel chaos, I got a call from her office. Her supervisor sounded concerned. "Is Lauren feeling all right? She was supposed to be here for the 9 o'clock department meeting. We have not heard from her." "Flight delays out of Las Vegas," I said in my most helpful voice. "You know how unpredictable travel gets. Of course, if you speak with her, please ask her to call in. We have to reschedule her client presentation for tomorrow." "I will let her know," I replied, assuming she has phone reception when she finally lands. What her supervisor did not know was that I had watched her entire weekend unfold online. The photos showed a storyline that had nothing to do with career development. Saturday night's post showed her in what looked like a high-end nightclub, certainly not a conference room. Sunday morning showed a picture at a poolside bar at noon. Later that evening, she appeared in someone's hotel suite at what looked like a private party. But the most telling post appeared briefly on Sunday night before it was deleted. A short video showed her dancing closely with a man who was definitely not part of the conference. The expensive watch, the casual attitude, and the bottle service told their own story. One of her new networking friends had tagged her. I took a screenshot before it disappeared. Digital evidence tends to come in handy when certain stories start falling apart. Around 2 o'clock that afternoon, another text came in. "Still dealing with airline issues. Might not be home until evening." She was sticking to the delay excuse, even though every flight on the airline's website was listed as on time. That is when I made my next move. I called the hotel where the conference had taken place. "I am trying to reach my wife," I told the front desk clerk. "She attended your conference this weekend and mentioned she might extend her stay." "What name was the reservation under?" the clerk asked. I gave him the information. There was a pause. "Sir, that reservation was checked out yesterday morning. However, I see she was listed in a different room last night." "A different room?" I asked. "Yes, sir. It appears she was staying in a suite under a different guest's reservation. She is listed as an additional occupant." Fascinating. So much for the delayed flight story. I thanked the clerk and hung up. Lauren was not stuck at the airport. She was still in Las Vegas, staying in someone else's hotel suite, while telling both her husband and her employer she was stranded. A lie that bold deserved a response just as bold. My next call was to her office again, this time requesting to speak with human resources. "I need to update some information regarding my wife's employment records," I explained. "What changes do you need to make?" the human resources representative asked. "Well," I said calmly, "Lauren has been very clear about wanting full independence in her professional life. So I think her emergency contact information should reflect that independence." "You want us to remove you as her emergency contact?" the representative asked, sounding puzzled. "Exactly," I said. "She has made it clear that her coworkers are her main support system now. I am sure one of them will gladly step in during an emergency." "This is unusual," the representative admitted. "But if this is what she asked for, we can update her file. She has made quite an impression about making decisions without needing input from family." "Just honoring her wishes," I said. And I meant it. After finishing everything with human resources, I sat for a moment and looked at the bigger picture. Lauren was in Las Vegas lying to me, lying to her workplace, and staying in another man's hotel suite. Yet she still expected me to carry all the typical responsibilities of a husband. The level of hypocrisy was almost impressive. At around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I received another text from her. "Finally boarding. Should be home by 8. Cannot wait to tell you about all the networking I did." Networking was certainly one way to describe her weekend. I spent the rest of the afternoon finishing my preparations. The house was spotless. Her belongings were neatly arranged. and I had put together a small, welcome home gesture that captured her newfound independence perfectly. Around 7 o'clock, I received a call from an unfamiliar number. When I answered, a man's voice, slightly slurred, with bar noise in the background, spoke up. "Is this the husband of the woman who works at Morrison Industries?" "Depends on which woman you mean," I said. "The one who keeps telling everyone she makes her own decisions and does not have to check with anybody. Real independent type." "You just described half the country," I replied. "You will need to be more specific." There was loud laughter behind him. "She has been telling everyone her husband does not get a say in her career. Thought you should know she has been putting that independence to good use out here." "I appreciate the call," I said evenly. "I am sure my wife is just exercising the autonomy she values so much." "Your wife?" the man said. "She told everyone she is basically single. Said her husband is just the guy who pays the bills while she lives her own life." The line clicked and went dead. There it was. She had not only claimed independence from my involvement in her career, she had been rewriting our entire relationship to justify whatever she was doing in Las Vegas. By 8:30, I started wondering if she planned on coming home at all. Then I heard her key turn in the front door and the wheels of her suitcase rolling across the hardwood. "I am home," she called out, her voice exaggeratedly cheerful, the same tone people use when they are trying too hard to sound innocent. Time to see how well her Vegas networking had prepared her for the independence she was about to walk into, I thought. She stepped into the living room looking exhausted, her suitcase dragging behind her. Her makeup was smudged, and she had that specific kind of worn-out look that comes from too much alcohol and not enough rest. "Sorry I am so late," she said, sinking onto the couch. "You would not believe the airline disasters I had to deal with today." I sat calmly in my chair, a folder full of documents sitting on the side table next to me. "Actually," I said, "I would believe it. Travel problems can get pretty complicated." She looked relieved that I was not questioning her. "Exactly," she said. "And the hotel checkout was a mess too. They mixed up my room." "Yes," I agreed. "Room mix-ups can be frustrating, especially when you are staying in someone else's suite." The color drained from her face. What do you mean?" she asked. "Oh, I called the hotel when you texted me about the delays. Thought I might be able to help straighten things out with the airline," I said casually. "I had a very interesting conversation with the front desk." She opened her mouth, then closed it again. The confident, independent woman she portrayed at work suddenly had no footing. "Look," she began, "I can explain." "I am sure you can," I said. "But before you start, there are a few things you need to know about how your independence has been going." I opened the folder slowly. "First," I said, "your emergency contact information at work has been updated. Since you made it clear your coworkers are your main support network, I removed myself from that role. It seemed appropriate." Her eyes widened. "You did what?" "I respected your autonomy," I said. "Is that not what you wanted?" "You cannot just." "Actually, I can. When a person announces they make decisions without input from their spouse, it goes both ways." Her breathing quickened. "What else did you do?" she asked. "Well," I said, turning a page, "I also updated our financial arrangements. Since you are committed to independence, I figured you would want to handle your own expenses from now on." "You closed our joint account?" she gasped. "I redirected my deposits to a personal account," I said. "Your paycheck can go wherever you want. Complete financial independence, just like you asked for." She shot to her feet. "This is insane. You cannot make decisions like this without talking to me." The irony was so perfect I almost laughed. I could not help but smile. "Funny thing about that," I said. "Last week, you told your entire department that husbands do not get a voice in important decisions. Now you are upset that I did not consult you before making changes?" "That was about work travel," she snapped. "Not our whole marriage." "Was it though?" I asked. "Because according to several people, you have been pretty loud about how your husband does not have a say in anything. How you make your own choices without any outside pressure." She started pacing, hands trembling slightly. "Who told you that? Does it matter?" I replied. "The point is, you got what you demanded. Full independence." "This is not what I meant," she said weakly. "Then you should have been clearer about what kind of independence you wanted." She dropped onto the couch with her head in her hands. "Look, Vegas got out of hand, but nothing serious happened. It was just networking and having fun." I took out my phone and held up the screenshot of the deleted video. This kind of networking? Her face drained of every bit of color. How did you? People post things, I said. Sometimes they panic and delete them. But the internet tends to remember. She stared at the image for a long moment, then looked at me with desperate eyes. It was not what it looked like. I was just having fun. I did not do anything wrong. Define wrong, I said calmly. Because from where I am sitting, you lied about your flight, lied to your boss about delays, and spent the night in another man's suite while telling strangers you were pretty much single. I never said I was single, she whispered. No? Then what did you tell people about our marriage? She was silent, trying to calculate what I knew. I may have implied, she said quietly, that we were not very close anymore. Ah, I said. So you were testing the waters for that independence. It was not like that. Then what was it like? I asked. Help me understand how fake flight delays and staying in someone else's room counts as professional networking. She started crying, but the tears were not remorse. They were panic. The kind you see when somebody realizes their actions actually have consequences. You cannot just destroy our marriage because I had too much fun on a business trip, she sobbed. I am not destroying anything, I said. I am simply honoring the independence you announced to the world. You wanted to make decisions without me. Congratulations. You are about to learn exactly what that feels like. But I need. What do you need? I asked. Because last week, you made it clear that you did not need anything from me. Not advice, not input, not involvement. She broke down completely. I need my husband. I need our life. That is interesting, I said as I stood and headed toward the kitchen. Because your new friends in Las Vegas seemed to think you were available for a very different kind of life. Where are you going? She cried. To make some coffee. It is going to be a long night, and you need to figure out how to manage your independence starting right now. As I walked away, I heard her frantically calling someone on her phone, probably one of her co-workers who cheered on her empowerment speech. She was about to find out exactly how much support that network really offered when things got messy. Tuesday morning brought the first real test of her new independent life. I was in the kitchen making breakfast when her phone started ringing around 7 o'clock. She answered in a hoarse voice like she barely slept. Hello. Oh, hi, Mr. Henderson. Henderson was her direct supervisor. And from the tone of her voice, this was not a friendly check-in. What? No, I am fine, she said. What kind of emergency? I kept stirring my coffee, pretending not to listen, though her side of the conversation was getting louder and more frantic. But I told you my flight was delayed yesterday. I could not help that. There was a long pause as she listened to him. What do you mean the client called you directly? They should have gone through me. Another pause, longer this time. I do not understand. What paperwork? I glanced over. She had gone pale again, sitting at the kitchen table in her robe, gripping her phone like it was the last thing keeping her upright. But you cannot remove me from the account without telling me, she said in a shaking voice. Now this was getting interesting. I sat down across from her with my coffee, waiting to hear more. I need to see those documents, she said desperately. There has to be some mistake. She hung up quickly and immediately started dialing someone else. Her hands shook so badly, she almost dropped the phone. Who are you calling? I asked casually. Human Resources, she said, breathless. Something is wrong with my client accounts. Henderson said paperwork was filed yesterday, changing my status on the Morrison project. That is strange, I said. What kind of paperwork? He would not tell me, she said, panicking. The Human Resources representative had told her only one thing, that they had received official notice stating she was no longer the primary contact for emergencies. I took a slow sip of my coffee. Emergency issues can get complicated, I said, especially when someone's contact information is not up to date. She froze mid-dial and stared at me with widening eyes. What did you do? She whispered. I updated your emergency contact information, I said calmly. You wanted independence from spousal involvement, remember? So I made sure your employer understood that. That was only about travel decisions, she snapped. Was it? I asked. Because when I spoke to Human Resources, they were under the impression it applied to all emergency contact situations. Her phone started ringing again. This time the caller ID showed her company's main line. She swallowed hard and answered. Yes, this is her, she said. I watched the color drain from her face. What do you mean there has been an incident? What kind of incident? She grabbed a pen and scribbled frantically on a napkin. The Riverside project? But that is not even my account anymore. She went quiet, listening, her expression collapsing with every second. I understand. Yes, I will come in as soon as I can. She hung up slowly, her hands shaking. There was a safety issue at one of the construction sites yesterday, she said. The client tried to reach me because I was listed as the primary contact for insurance purposes. When they could not reach me, and when my backup contact told them I was no longer his responsibility, they panicked. And I prompted. They terminated the contract, she whispered. A $2 million account is gone. I nodded sympathetically. Emergency contact accuracy is very important. This is insane, she cried. You ruined my career because you were mad about Las Vegas. I did not ruin anything, I said. I simply respected the independence you claimed. You said you did not want my input on work-related matters, so I stepped back. Her tears changed tone again, no longer panic, but genuine dread. You do not understand, she said. Henderson is furious. He is talking about putting me on probation. That does sound serious, I said. And Human Resources wants to meet with me this afternoon about the emergency situation, she added, choking on the words. They think I might be unreliable. Her phone buzzed. She read the message and somehow went even paler. What now? I asked. It is from payroll, she said. They want me to verify my direct deposit information. Something must have changed. Oh, that? I said casually. I redirected your deposit to your personal checking account. I figured you would want to manage your finances independently. I do not have enough in that account to cover my car payment. That sounds like the kind of problem an independent person has to solve, I said calmly. She stared at me like she no longer recognized me. You are actually enjoying this. I am not enjoying anything, I said. I am simply putting your independence into practice, exactly how you demanded, in front of your whole department. Her phone started ringing again. This time she just stared at it. Aren't you going to answer? I asked. It is my mother, she muttered. She probably heard about everything. How would she hear about it? I asked. She swallowed. Because Henderson called her yesterday when he could not reach me. She is my secondary emergency contact. The phone stopped ringing for a second, then immediately started again. You should probably pick that up, I told her. Independent people handle their own family problems. She hesitated, then answered. Hi, Mom. Her mother's voice was so loud I could hear it from across the room. Questions about missed calls, professional responsibility, and what in the world her daughter was doing. Mom, it was just a misunderstanding about contact information, she said quickly. My husband did not do anything wrong. This is just a work issue. But even as she defended me, she stared at me like she was finally understanding the full weight of her choices. Her bold speech about independence had triggered a chain reaction she could not stop. When she finally hung up, she sat in silence for a long time. This is not what I wanted, she whispered. What did you want? I asked. I wanted to feel empowered at work. I wanted people to see me as strong and independent. Mission accomplished, I said. You are about to be fully independent. She looked up at me like she was drowning. How do I fix this? That, I said, standing up to refill my coffee, is exactly the kind of decision an independent person makes without input from anyone else. By Thursday, Lauren's independence was fully in effect. She sat at the kitchen table surrounded by a mess of bills, bank statements, and half-filled job applications. The same woman who proudly announced she did not need anyone's input was now facing what that actually looked like in the real world. Her meeting with Human Resources had gone badly. When they asked her to explain why her emergency contact information had been changed, she could not give any answer that made sense without admitting her husband removed himself because of her own public declarations. The conversation shifted fast, from paperwork questions to concerns about her judgment and reliability. They're transferring me, she finally said, not looking up from the paperwork. New department. Less pay. No clients. Basically starting from the bottom again. That sounds like a fresh chance to show off your independent decision-making, I replied. She did not react to the sarcasm. She was too busy trying to figure out how she would survive a 30% pay cut. Then her phone rang. Hello. Yes, this is her, she answered, sounding exhausted. From the tight look on her face, I could tell it was not a work call. What do you mean the lease application was rejected? I submitted everything you asked for. Yes, her apartment hunt. She had been trying to find her own place since Tuesday, keeping the theme of independence going. My credit is fine, she insisted into the phone. She listened for several minutes, asking rushed and desperate questions. I see. Yes, I understand. Thank you. She hung up and stared at the phone like it had personally betrayed her. Problem? I asked. The place I wanted requires proof of stable employment, she said quietly. They said probation at work does not count as stable. And without our joint account history, I do not have enough financial background to qualify on my own. Independence can be expensive, I said. She finally looked up at me. You knew this would happen. I knew actions have consequences, I said. You announced that you did not need me involved in major decisions. Now you're living exactly what that looks like. But I never meant. What you meant does not matter anymore, I said. What you said at work, what you did in Las Vegas, and what you're facing now, it is all connected. You wanted to be seen as completely autonomous. And now you are. Her phone buzzed again. She checked the message and looked even smaller than before. My mother wants to know if I am moving back home since I'm having career difficulties, she said softly. Are you? I asked. I do not know. I do not have anywhere else to go right now. That sounds like exactly the kind of choice an independent woman makes for herself, I said. She fell silent, staring at the bills and rejection notices spread across the table. The women at work, she finally said, voice shaky. The ones who cheered me on when I made that stupid independent speech. When I tried to talk to them about everything, they told me I should have thought about the consequences before making bold statements. Wise advice, I said. One of them told me I was naive to think I could have it both ways, she continued. Either I'm independent and handle everything myself, or I'm part of a partnership and act like it. I looked at her. And which one are you? Tears filled her eyes. I thought I could be both. I thought I could feel strong at work and still have security at home. You cannot claim independence from half a marriage and expect the other half to stay the same, I said. You know that now? She wiped her face and started gathering the scattered papers. I need to figure out what kind of rent I can afford on my new salary. Good luck with that, I said. She walked toward the stairs, then stopped and turned back. For what it is worth, I am sorry about Las Vegas, she said quietly. I made terrible choices. Yes, I said. You did. And I am sorry about what I said at work. I was trying to impress people. Also true, I replied. She hugged the stack of papers to her chest. Is there any way, any chance we can we work this out? Fix things? I looked at her, standing there surrounded by the consequences she created, fully realizing the cost of the independence she had demanded. That, I said, is the kind of conversation that requires both people in a marriage. But since you are committed to making your own decisions without outside influence, I suppose you will need to figure that out on your own, too. She stood silently for a moment, then went upstairs to plan the next step in her fully autonomous life. Her co-workers had been correct about one thing. She was absolutely getting everything she asked for.